Thank you for checking out the 80/20 Real Estate Show. On this episode, my good buddy Beau Hollis joins us. He is the #1 wholesaler in the Louisville, Kentucky area. We talk everything from building his success in wholesaling through cold calling, online media, online brand building, which I truly think he is a master at. And we also talk some high-level stuff as far as like leaving a legacy, building an ideal family, and a lot of mindset stuff. So it's a long episode, great conversation that gets pretty deep. Hope you guys enjoy it. Let me know what you think. So I'm pumped to have good friend Beau Hollis on here, just to even be able to chat with him and pick his brain. Most importantly, guys, he is a father of two, married. He's a BBQ master. If you guys follow him on social, he will make your mouth water from all the stuff that he posts. And he's actually an official certified BBQ judge out of Louisville, Kentucky. He is the founder and CEO of Simply Sold. If you guys are watching on YouTube on my or his channel, you see I'm rocking his gear. So thank you for coming on, man. I appreciate it.
Yeah, man, I am super glad to be on. It's exciting to finally get to be here.
Yeah, cool. Man. So for those of you who are members of our masterclass, Beau actually had an awesome presentation of physically being on a seller appointment and how to establish what I mentioned at the beginning of the show, likability and credibility to help you get more contracts signed and really just relay the value to the seller that you can provide as a real estate investor. And obviously you're going to make more money, help more people. So if you haven't seen that, definitely check that out online, investorfuse.com/courses, I believe it is, or feel free to shoot me an email, info@investorfuse.com, if you want super tactical advice from Beau, being on site at a property and helping lock up contracts. Today, I want to focus on kind of Beau as a person and also what has made him so successful, not only in his real estate investing business, but on this show, we like to talk about quality of life, lifestyle design, things of that nature as well, which, as I mentioned in my introduction of Beau, you can just tell he is somebody that is a happy family guy, beautiful wife and kids, something that I aspire to be and have in my life. So I'm excited just to pick Beau's brain here and also just broadcast it for you guys who I know you'll get value from. So to start this off, I want to have just a quick story on how you got into real estate and your beginning real estate career. I know that we talked about that on another interview, but maybe like a 60-second, 2-minute type intro of what you were doing prior to real estate and how that helped you. Actually, I know the story, but just want to relay it.
No, man, that's good. So prior to where I'm at now, I was a lifelong student forever. I was going to be, a doctor, not like the kind that does surgery on you, but like a PhD. That was my goal in life. And I thought there was no higher calling than just being super educated and one of these really smart guys. And all I would have ended up being was just a smart aleck, right? I think that's a nice way to say it. But, life had a different turn for me to take. And I ended up I got recruited to sell life insurance directly out of college. And I thought, and it was door-to-door sales at that, right? So it was, I was literally just thrust into, I had to go make some money for my family. And we had a child and another one on the way. And I got recruited to sell door-to-door life insurance. And that's when my life took a drastic change. I started selling life insurance door-to-door. And I was a naive kid before that happened. And then I realized that it was just a crazy, crazy experience for me to get and go sell life insurance, right? I'm going and selling something to someone that they're never going to use while they're alive, yet I have to convince them to pay for it for the rest of their life. And go in the door, something, hey, you want to buy this today? And you're never going to get to use it. Only your family's going to get to use it. And you got to pay for it until you die. Like convincing someone to do that was tough. And so I learned how to talk to people pretty quick. And I became good at it. I started training people how to do that. And then I ran my own agency. At one point, I had about 20, 25 agents working for me. And then I traveled around different states and training people how to sell life insurance for companies like Mutual of Omaha, Transamerica, big Fortune 500 companies in the insurance world. And Pretty soon I hated my job and hated my life. Uh, so to speak. I enjoyed my family, right? I love that kind of stuff. I didn't like hate myself, but I didn't like what I was doing every day. I Sunday night I would start getting anxiety. Monday morning I would feel like puking, and I had to go do this every single day and train people, and I just hated it. And one day I was on a lawnmower, and at the time my dad had some land, and I mowed this land every week just because I always did it, right? And I was on this lawnmower mowing some grass, and I was listening to the book Rich Dad Poor Dad on this lawnmower. And that book, I literally said, when I got done listening to that book, I said, I'm going to quit my job. I'm going to quit my job. And at that point I had, in the insurance business, I was probably making, 200 to 250, roughly, give or take. Some months were good and some months were, a little bit less. And, I was making decent money at the time. And I just thought, the thought scared me a little bit. I'm going to quit my job to do real estate. And I didn't know. So I called a friend literally on the same lawnmower. And I said, hey, didn't you tell me one time that you did real estate? He was the only person I knew who did something. He told me one time he had made money on a flipping an apartment. And I was like, didn't you do real estate at one point? And he goes, yeah. He goes, I did. Listen to this podcast. And he told me a podcast of somebody else. And that was some kind of a wholesaling style podcast. And I listened to the podcast, and I was convinced I was going to quit my job. And I quit my job. I walked away from my business and gave away like all my agents to somebody else. And I ended up, before I walked away completely, I had done a wholesale deal, which I did one wholesale deal. Luckily I had money saved up, but I did one wholesale deal, walked away from everything. The company, the CEO of the company kind of flipped out and was like, I can't believe you're doing this. You're leaving a promising career to get into real estate. You can't believe you're going to go be an agent. That's what he told me, which I'm not an agent. He didn't have a clue. But, and here I am. A few hundred deals later, in the wholesaling world, I'm talking to you, which has been a wild ride and a journey. And I can't believe it. It's just some days are great and some days suck, though. I will say that, it being real. Entrepreneurship can be difficult. And you just got to keep your head up and then find the greater things in life to enjoy, and realize that sometimes days will end and new days will begin.
Mm-hmm. Very well said, man. How old are you now? You're like 34 or 35 now, right?
35 years old.
35 years young.
Yes.
Life is certainly a wild ride. I say that all the time. Life is a wild thing. One thing I'm picking up, though, that's interesting is kind of how you're describing your journey of entrepreneurship, where there's ups, downs, but just having the perspective of kind of seeing everything in the most positive light as possible. That's kind of also a framework that you have for you and your team when you're working leads, because you would talk back in the insurance day of, you or other people saying, oh, these leads suck. Or people in real estate say that, oh, these leads suck. This guy's not motivated. None of these people want to sell me a property for 40 or 50 cents on the dollar. But your perspective on working leads is similar to your perspective on entrepreneurship. And I think just from, we've been friends for a couple of years, and just hearing you on other podcasts, that's one of the reasons that you've been so successful with your cold call outreach and different lead generation marketing tactics, which I kind of want to talk on everything and just get philosophy from a high level person, more importantly, and a high level investor for you guys that want more so the tactical strategic things for your real estate investing business.
All leads suck. That's the truth. I mean, like this in a lead-based business, all leads suck. I mean, very rarely that you ever come across a lead where someone's like, "Oh my God, please sell me buy my house right now for 20 cents on the dollar,"
right?
Or I'll give you my house. Rarely does someone come out. I mean, like really rarely does somebody ever come out and say, "Please, take my house." I mean, only in the most dire of circumstances do people expose themselves of the reality of their situation.
Mm-hmm.
It just takes work.
Mm-hmm.
It takes work. You got to actually work the job. You got to work.
Mm-hmm.
You got to talk to people. And this is a lead-based business. And some days it just is, I've learned to kind of just roll with it and laugh. And, all the crazy calls that we get, we laugh, and we just, I mean, it's incredible. The stuff we hear and go through and see. And dude, it's just, you can't take yourself too serious. You know what I'm saying? If you take it too serious, you're going to get upset. Why in the world did that person say this to me? Well, I don't know. I mean, who knows? They could be at home sitting in their underwear and just be watching a crazy show and they're drunk. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
People are crazy.
People are 100% crazy.
I just can't take it too serious. I just got to roll with it and just keep moving on.
100%, man. Well said. For you guys to dive a little bit into numbers, for those of you who don't know Beau, don't follow him on social, he's definitely very high volume in Louisville. Biggest, not to sound ego driven or anything like this, but probably the biggest wholesaler in Louisville, in the Louisville area. He's had some months north of 30 transactions, 30 deals in 1 month, is averaging anywhere probably from 8 to that 30 range, depending on the month and the duration, because we're talking throughout a few years here.
Yeah.
And then one thing I want Beau to kind of just talk about philosophy wise is how his cold calling approach has changed. If you guys search Beau after this call, you'll see a lot of stuff around his success with cold calling. I want to touch on that today, and then also just his philosophy moving forward on branding, because he has an amazing podcast he just launched. He has an awesome online presence and a growing YouTube channel. So I kind of want to talk on all that. One thing that I wanted to touch on, just your perspective and how this has changed for you, is the contact rate for cold calling. Because I've seen at parts in your business, you and I think one assistant at a time were the ones handling the cold calling primarily. Yep. And it took a lot less calls, of course, with your experience in your previous businesses. It took a lot less calls for you to get a deal under contract and find a motivated seller versus if you outsource that to somebody. So I kind of want to just hear your whole philosophy. Let's talk cold calling for this section before we start moving on to online brands, doing your podcast, everything like that. But tell me a little bit about best cold calling strategies and kind of how that duration has been. I guess it was like 2016 or 2017 range, up till today.
Yeah. So let me kind of give you the breakdown really quick of like the business and how that worked. And then a real quick synopsis of kind of where we were to where we are.
Sweet.
So at the beginning of 2016 is when I started wholesaling, and my journey quickly escalated from bandit signs to, I did cold calling, because it was really very similar to door knocking for me. It just wasn't in front of somebody, right? It was just a cold contact.
You couldn't get physically hit.
Exactly. It was better. It was better for me. I couldn't, one of my agents, he quit working for me because he got a gun pulled on him, and he quit that day. And, but that was so much safer than going and door knocking. So I decided to cold call. And at that point, I had a guy working with me at the time. We cold called together, a local friend of mine here. And, we would cold call and get deals. And, we would probably average, 8 to 10 deals a month, sometimes less, sometimes more. We had some big months, and, it grew. And then sometimes, Wayne, we didn't have the right systems in place. And that was pre InvestorFuse, right? It was the old school pen and paper, literally. And I mean that as the way I just said it. I had a yellow notepad and a piece and a pen, right? I would write our leads down. And so we were limited to literally how much we could remember in any given time.
I will say, just to cut in really quick, just funny that I'm remembering this, Beau does have photographic memory. I have been hanging out with him just at InvestorFuse. Just me and him will be on a call like this, and he's just following up with leads. He'll know exactly the situation just from photographic memory, which is pretty funny.
That is so true. I didn't know I had a photographic memory until I started door knocking, and then it got better and better. And then I started doing this, and then I'd be sitting there talking to one of my buddies, Richard, he worked for me at the time. And he would be like, "Oh, you remember that lady over at this?" And I was like, "Yeah, this address. Remember Miss Betty? She was doing this and this and this and this and this." And he was like, "What? That was like 6 months ago. How do you remember that?" And I was like, "Oh, I don't know. You don't remember that?" And then finally, we were talking and laughing that I had a good memory. And, but it has come to serve me very well, because I can remember people and their situations and what's going on. And so we had these notepads and pens, and we would just work our business off that, which I don't recommend that. Like when you're first starting, sure, do it. But if you're going to have a high volume lead business, definitely a bad decision, because you're going to lose deals on the follow-up, because you're going to not remember, everything that you need to be doing, right? And the cold leads, I mean, we could go down that road, but the cold leads, you're going to lose every one of those, but because you're only writing down the hot leads, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're not doing anything else other than like the low hanging fruit.
The leads that suck the least.
Yes. The leads that they say that they would think about selling. So you're writing those down.
Mm-hmm.
So we got into cold calling pretty heavily there. And at the time, it was just me in this city. Really, there was I think maybe a home investors guy around, but at that level, I mean, even they weren't players in the space here. They were just kind of onesie twosie style, right? It was just like a deal here, a deal there, and there was a couple guys in town who, at the time, I thought they were like the biggest wholesalers around. I was thinking, okay, these guys are wholesalers, but what I realized is that they were actually just landlords who were selling out the crappiest of their houses. Like they would bring this big old list to meetings and you'd be like, oh my God, this guy has 40, 50 houses he's ready to sell. Well, no, he's not wholesaling. He's not a marketing wholesaler. He just was selling out his crap, right? And just selling all his deals. And everybody thinks he's a big wholesaler. Well, I found that out pretty quickly. It weren't really like his deals. And I realized that, no one's really doing this business in our city. We started cold calling. And the contact rates were really good. And this is we're in this recording now and it's several years later. And a lot of rules have changed nationally, right? On spam laws. And, we're not going to get into the legal side of this, but, a lot of rules have changed the way the carriers present your numbers. It could pop up as spam nowadays, even today, like if you're using a dialer system. And back then it wasn't like that, really. You call and your number popped up. And so we were able to really have a lot of great success. And then pretty soon I started getting on podcasts, right? I started getting on podcasts. I started doing different nationally big podcasts. And I did a few of those. And then pretty soon people's like, well, man, if he's if this guy's having success, then I'm going to get involved in Louisville and start doing it. Well, everybody started cold calling, right? Everybody and their brother, because it's the path of least resistance. And if you think about this from a high level, there's a lot of people who are out on YouTube and doing different things, and they're saying, you can do this business, and you can get out there and do it. Well, these kids are graduating high school, and they're just like, well, I'm not going to go to college. I'm going to start wholesaling. I can sit in my mom's basement and sit in my underwear and play Madden and literally just start cold calling while I'm doing video games, right? They hear Brett Daniels and talk all these people and they're sitting there doing their cold calling while they're at home doing nothing, right? They just graduated high school or 20, 21 years old, after years after high school, right? Obviously there's not a 21-year-old kid still in high school, I hope, but but at the end of it, there's these young people who are cold calling, and so the market started getting a little bit more flooded, and it changed the game a little bit, because now people will say, well, man, I just got a call about that, when that never happened. Literally, I would never hear a seller tell me, oh man, someone just called me. No one ever say that. Now people say, you people stop calling me. Why in the world are you calling me now? I could count at least 10 to 12 guys that I could think of now that totally had no idea about wholesaling. Now that they are wholesaling now, most of them are cold calling. It's the path of least resistance, because you can do it right away from home on a pretty limited budget. And so people, they don't have to have huge budgets for direct mail, right? Or, they don't have to have all that stuff. So they cold call, right? So pretty soon, where does that put us? That's the real question, is where in the world does that put us as people who've been cold calling?
Good question.
So I had a guy come over to my house recently. He's a local guy. He was a realtor. And I had him come into the studio here and come to this is my office. And he was like, dude, I just want you to teach me, how to cold call. I've been cold calling. I just can't get anything done. And, I just want you to teach me. And I'm like, okay, sure. He's wholesaler. I'm a wholesaler. He's literally going to come into my office and sit in front of me, in front of my dialer, as a sit down right here where we are. And he's going to sit next to me while I cold call, right? My direct competition. And why would anybody do that? That's what a lot of people would think. And so I just like, okay, come on in. Let's cold call for 3 hours. And I took 3 hours out of my day. And this guy came over and he sat with me. We get on the dialer and we're just dialing through, right? They're through old data, and called this lady. And within the first hour, call her, and she answers the phone. And I said, "Hey, ma'am, my name's Beau. Sorry to kind of call you out of the blue. Just calling you about this house at 123 Main Street." And she was like, "I don't want to sell it." That was the first thing. "I don't want to sell it." I was like, "Oh, okay, no problem. Just out of curiosity, can I ask, why?" We kind of went down that whole road, and then I said, "Do you have any other properties you want to sell?" And she goes, "Actually," she was real hard on the phone because she was like, she said, "All you all just keep calling me about this property. I don't want to sell it. It was my mom's house. I've had this property for years. Just leave me alone." And I asked her about the other properties if she had any. She goes, "So you know what? I do actually have a property I want to sell." And I said, "Well, do you have a second to tell me about it?" So I just listened. I just listened to this lady talk for a while, told me her whole life story. And to make a long story short, this lady, she tells me, she was, "All these other people, do you know these people?" She named off other wholesalers, right? Other wholesalers in my market. Like, she's like, "Do you know these people?" And I'm like, I think so, and I'm thinking, like, of course I know these people. She's like, "Yeah, they made me an offer, but I haven't heard back from them. Or they talked to me, but they haven't called me back." And I'm thinking, okay, well, I talked to her and we kept talking and talking and talking. And pretty soon I get the house under contract and got the deal. And what separates, in a high competition marketplace, how in the world does a guy, when everybody else is cold calling, how does a guy get a deal when everybody else is calling a lady after she just blew me off? Why are those deals available? And I think it's all because of a few things. Is that, people's first initial reaction of rejection, they reject you. Most people, when I got off that phone call, I put the dialer on pause, and the guy said, he goes, "Wow, man, I can't believe that." He's like, "I would have definitely just said, okay, thanks," and hung up. He's like, "But you took the conversation a step further, and you pushed harder back on the phone, and not just say, 'No, I don't want to sell that house. Why y'all keep calling me?' Okay, say, 'I'm so sorry,' and get off the phone, go to the next lead." Mm-hmm. That turned out to be a $10,000 deal. And it was a real easy deal. It was super simple. What's the difference is because I was able to hear some of her objections right off the phone. She had some frustration. She was dealing with a lot of stuff. It was her mom's property. I listened to her really, really good. And I was able to, break down that barrier and then find out if there's another problem that she had. And she's like, "Oh man, I do want to sell that house." Most people don't ask those little questions. And it's the details that people lose things over. It's not the big things in wholesaling that really is a deal breaker. A lot of times it's just people do the small things and they miss some of those really small details. Like understanding psychology, right, of a seller, listening to these things that people are saying that people are just glancing right over. They're not seeing it, and they're missing out deals. Mm-hmm. They're missing out these deals because they're just missing on the details that could be difference between, a deal or no deal, right? It's like golf, a game of inches, or any game for that matter. It's just the small stuff that makes a difference. It's not just, well, I'm on the dialer, you're on the dialer, we're all calling the same lists. We might be, but that doesn't really matter. It's how you handle yourself. Mm-hmm. 100%. I think that's the big difference between most people, and even in a crowded market spaces, learning how to listen to people well, and listening to actually what they're telling you and hearing their frustrations. And I feel like I'm a really good listener. I think that if people would really get good at listening, I think that it would go really far. And then secondly, I'm really stinking good at follow-up due to InvestorFuse.
I appreciate that. A lot of that's on you, though.
I would agree. It is still on me, but I have the ability. I'll say that I have the ability to follow up because I can go to a centralized location now and not try to find the fifth notepad that I threw in my back seat. Mm-hmm. Right. And I mean, I know, like, I'm not going to stop until the lady literally says, if you call me one more time, I'm going to find you. I'm going to come to your house. I'm going to beat down your door and I'm going to beat you up. And then I'm going to call the police. You know, I'm going to call Donald freaking Trump to come and make you stop calling me. You know, like, that's how I want people to really get upset. You know, I really want people to be like, never call me again. I'm going to come shoot you.
Mm-hmm.
I want to be relentless. You know, so if they say, not today, I'm busy. You know how many people told me that in door knocking? They said, oh, I'm so busy right now. It's like, well, it's just going to take me a minute. I'm really busy. Can you just come back tomorrow? I'm like, well, I'm already in the area today. You know, I can't come back tomorrow. And they're like, well, I got, you know, Price is Right is on. You know, I realized that when people said stuff to me, that they really don't mean what they say. Mm-hmm. They're not really telling you the truth. Not that everybody's a liar. It's just that it just means not now. And I think too many people, they're missing stuff because they just take at face value what people are saying to them. You know, hey, no, I don't want to sell my house. Maybe they do. Maybe they're just too busy. Maybe they're literally are watching Maury Povich. You know, like, it could be true. That, and I believe that mostly about people, is that they would at least have an intelligent conversation with you if you'll just follow up and just keep going after the deals. And that's one thing that does separate me, is I am pretty good at following up with people, you know, 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 times or more points of contact. Mm-hmm. You know, hey, it's me again. Called you Tuesday last week. You know, just really, really honing in on that. That's something I've been successful in. And I learned that from door knocking. That's something I've really done a good job at. But I had the training to do that. And now I think if somebody would do that for real, like, really just be relentless. Well, I called the person 2 times and they said no. Well, cry me a river. I mean, go knock on their door and say, hey, I've been calling you 3 times a day for the last 3 weeks. Do you want a deal or not? That's the really what it comes down to. And that's what I would teach my agents. They say, well, nobody's home. I want to knock on their door. Nobody's home. Well, go knock again. You know, it really is just the power of being relentless, of really doing what other people are not willing to do and getting uncomfortable. Most people are not really willing to put themselves in an uncomfortable situation and get like, hey, it's me again. Oh my God, this guy's called me so many freaking times. And they're probably going to feel guilty for saying no so many times. So you're at least going to, you know, they'll probably talk to you and tell you their situation, right? Mm-hmm. Especially if you have a stacked list. You know, for those people who are listening who are like high-level entrepreneurs and like pro wholesalers, like if you have stacked lists that people that you know that they have problems in their life. Yeah. I mean, you're calling these people. You know that they're lying to you. I don't want to sell my house. Well, you're about to lose it next Friday in foreclosure. So you probably, you're not going to say that to them. Maybe you are. The battle on the 9th, 3 bases loaded, you know, Hail Mary, you know, whatever. You know, you're thinking that. At least you know that they're lying at some level. Yeah.
You know, there's multiple reasons why they're showing up.
Yeah, there's lots of motivation, right? If they're on your list, if they're on my list and I'm calling them, it's because there's a problem. And if they're nonchalant, deal with the truth. You know, we're not just calling high equity homeowners. You know, we're really trying to go after target lists. So that's one thing too, is confidence, calling with confidence, knowing who your target audience is. If you know you're calling people with problems in their life, the confidence that you have that you are the solution to their problem, it gives you confidence to try to listen to them, try to talk to them, try to help them. This is not all about money. Literally, this business is not just about price for people's homes. You know, it's solving their problems. And I know that's cliche, but, you know, really even being a problem solver in the first conversation, knowing that you are their solution, it helps a whole lot in that confidence piece.
Mm-hmm. You have a very interesting perspective, not only on life, but on this business. I want to do a quick recap before we keep going here, but with Beau's experience door knocking in his previous business, he was able to hone in his perceptive listening, where he's pretty much looking for problems to have the opportunity to solve, like a hawk. So he's focusing on that. And how often, Beau, it's funny, how often is the first number that a seller gives you, how often is that the actual number that they end up selling for?
Oh, it's like literally, I can think of one property where recently that this guy told me the first number and that was the contract price.
Yeah.
But only because it was this 1 out of a million style deal where the guy said, I want this price, and that's all. I can't go a dime lower. It's because it's a little bit over my payoff, and I have to have enough just to pay my capital gains tax. And that's it. If you can buy it for this price, you can have a deal, and I'll sign the contract today. Like, how many people ever say that on the very first contact? Like, none. And
Unicorns.
it was the unicorn. It was in the hottest area of town. I went and met him immediately, put it on our contract, and it was a huge deal. So rarely, but it is being very perceptive. Like, so to answer your question, it never happens. Like, unless you're seeing unicorns, right? They all tell you, I want 151,000. You look on Zillow, right? It says 151,000, right? You're like, that they just looked that up.
100%. So don't get deterred, or don't exhaust yourself on not following up just because their initial asking price, is way higher than your wholesale buy box. But Beau is able to, with his experience from his previous business, a lot of it I think is natural personality. Me and Beau are similar. I was even telling my roommate last night, because I was watching some previous interviews you were at dinner, that were both pretty like high friendly, outgoing guys. But with his experience, becoming very likable, establishing credibility, perceptive listening with the intention of looking for problems, he's been able to, and having the approach of just being relentless, as he said, following up. A lot of these people, as you guys know who are watching this, are experienced wholesalers. A lot of the times these people that are selling, it's kind of like an embarrassing situation. It's kind of like if you're a kid, like, hey dad, I borrowed your car. I got in a fender bender last night, or I scratched. It's not a comfortable conversation to have. So a lot of the times these deals are going to come from follow-up, with Beau is absolutely relentless with. So just a quick recap there on everything that Beau was talking about. Cold calling now, I guess let's talk tactics, like really, really quickly. And again, guys, this is public information you can find on YouTube, everything a lot like this. The foundation of what we just went through, I think that is the 80-20 and the most important part. This is just strategy that's going to kind of be revolving to a certain extent. But like, what type of lists are you pulling? Beau is using InvestorFuse. I'm still using Mojo, unless you switched carriers there. I remember.
No, I switched around. I mean, a little bit. I used ZenCall for a while.
ZenCall.
I switched back to Mojo just because of I wasn't able to fully utilize ZenCall with my current setup, and so because it allows you to list stack inside of them. Like, if you want to get real technical inside there, you can do what's called weighted lists, and essentially it's just list stacking inside of a caller, which is it's insane. But you need somebody who can manage that, and I'm not that guy, so went back to Mojo.
Cool.
But inside of cold calling, like, really, like you said, all this stuff's free online, and so much of it is, I ran my business for a long time off of vacant lists, right? I wanted to do, like, if a house is vacant, it's probably some level of motivation, right? So I found the vacant list from our Public City records, which a lot of guys currently think is still unavailable. I found out how to find it again, which I'm very excited about. And I have a full-time guy getting those things all the time for me now.
That's awesome.
So really just, I want a first level, I want motivation, right? I want some level of layers. Think of it like a sandwich, right? You want layers of motivation inside of what you believe to be motivation. It could be, most of the things that we're going to look for is motivation for the property, motivation in people's lives. And we're going to stack those and they have names, right, on them. We're going to stereotype these properties and people's problems, right? I don't know how else to put it, but that's the way what we're going to do. We're going to say, is there, physical distress on these properties, and what does that look like? It could be a driving for dollars list. It could be a vacant list from your city. And then we're going to stack on people problems. Like, it could be back taxes. It could be divorce. It could be evictions, right? And then it could be code violations, right? City. So we got 5, 6, 7 layers deep of potential people problems attached to property problems. And then on top of all these, it could be all on to one property. And once you layer all that up, and then you can even, once you get all of these other lists, these all could be in separate lists too, right? You could have a divorce list, you could have evictions, you could have code violations, you could have vacant properties, you could have, a ton of things, right? So you stack all of these things together and you figure out what people are on multiple lists. now we're really creating a really honed in list, right? So we know Carlos is on the divorce list. He's on the eviction list, and Carlos is on a bankruptcy list. Carlos, clearly you got problems, Carlos.
I got some serious problems.
You got some serious problems. But if I'm calling Carlos here and I know that Carlos is on every one of these lists, and that allows me confidence. It builds confidence inside of me as the caller that I know that Carlos has a problem in his life, and nothing that Carlos says to me other than, if he says I'm fine, I know he's lying. If he says I'm good, I'm good. He's $50,000 back or something's wrong, I know Carlos is lying. I know that he's not telling me the truth, and I am not doing a good enough job to help Carlos. So I have to make sure that no matter what he says, I'm going to keep following up unless Carlos somehow magically makes this problem go away. So there's part of it is just the confidence knowing that my lists are solid. And I'm not just calling Bobby, who lives, in California, has got a good cash flow and rental here in Kentucky, and he don't want to sell because it's bringing me money, buddy. I'm good. Mm-hmm. I know Churchill Downs is going to buy it in 5 years, and I'm going to get paid $300,000. I'm not calling those guys. I'm calling people who I know the problems in their life. I'm aware of the problems in their life, and that allows me to have confidence to have intelligent conversations with people, knowing that the people I'm calling, they have a problem. That's cold calling 101, is that these people, they have issues, mm-hmm. and that you're just calling and you know about the issues. So,
and you have confidence in your data.
Yeah, you have stacked lists and you have data, and that's one of the biggest things, is knowing that. So mm-hmm. I think when you do that, and you can have a little confidence that when you can have a better conversation, when you say, hey, you thought about selling the property? They say, well, yeah, might be you're a total stranger. Why in the world am I just going to vomit all the information that I know about my life to you? Mm-hmm. Think through that, as them. Why in the world? So you got to dig. It's like peeling an onion, right? You got to really dig into that and peel the layers back. Well, great. Do you have a minute to talk to me? Well, sure. Okay. Yeah. Tell me about the condition. Let's go superficial. It's like the layers of friendship, right? Mm-hmm. Hey, Carlos, me and you are friends. And think about it like this too. If you're looking at psychology of people and sellers, think of it as friends. Hey, Carlos, I like Lamar Jackson. Hey,
I was just thinking about that.
Literally. It's like we're the most superficial style of friends as far as we shake hands, we meet in the coffee shop. Hey, I like coffee. Great. You like coffee. Well, we're going to hang out and talk about the coffees or teas or whatever. I like whatever you like. And so we do that. The next layer of friendship is, oh man, now we have a common bond, a common interest. Lamar Jackson, he went to the same school as me. He won the Heisman Trophy. Now he just won the MVP of the NFL, and he's from my city, and now he plays for the Baltimore Ravens. Isn't he the best? You're like, oh my God, I just got his autograph yesterday and got a picture with him, and now we're better friends, right? It's like stage 2 friendship, mm-hmm. right? So now we got that. And that's what you're trying to get through. It's like, so imagine it like steps. And now the next level, you get deeper into a lot of deeper common bond stuff. And you get into your personal stuff. Like, okay, hey, I'm going to go hang out a little bit, and you're going to go maybe get a drink together, or you need to go hang out, right? And so now you're next level friendship. And then you start really, then the fourth layer is you have to get to this layer before you can really get a deal, is talking about their personal failures. Like not like, hey, I cheated on my husband, but like talking about like, hey, we've got this going on. I went through a divorce. I went through this. I had bankruptcy in my life. If you can get to that layer where somebody is telling you their issues, and it looks like this on a phone call. Hey, sorry, I got kids in the background. Oh man, that's okay. My boys are crazy. They're upstairs probably punching each other in the face, or whatever, they're playing football upstairs. I'm sure they're naked right now. Boys, shut up, whatever, that's me, but I'm taking my personality and doing that. So for me, okay, this person has children, I have children, and we're finding common ground, right? That's the first thing you got to do. Number 2 is then she's like, okay, I'm busy right now. I got a kid on my hip. And I'm like, oh, I understand, me too. I got 2 kids on my hip. That way you're trying to stay on the phone, and then you're trying to, hey, just got a minute to tell me about the property. Yeah, it's okay. It's 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms. It's a little dirty. Now they're kind of revealing a little bit more. I had a pipe break and flooded, and now I got to change the carpet, and I didn't have any money. And my husband, now, boom, she's about to tell you her husband left her. And I didn't have enough money to deal with this. And now I'm about, what are you doing with the house now? I'm starting to ask intelligent questions. So can you tell me a little bit more about the property? Like, oh yeah, it's just is this and needs new windows. And when I was like, then I'll say something like, have you thought about moving or selling the property before I asked you? And then I kind of laugh about that, right? Like, I know I'm asking you about it, but have you thought about it before I asked you? And I want to see, I'm trying to deep dive motivation. Yeah, I was actually just talking to my friend Betty about it last night. I hate this house, and then I'm trying to, well, great. I'm interested in it. And then, we kind of get into the issues and, really deep diving. You can really compress a whole lot into a 10-minute conversation if you'll ask really intelligent questions and understand that cycle and the stages of a conversation that you're in so much more than just, hey, you want to sell your house and how much money you have, or you want to buy.
I'm a cash buyer.
I'm a cash buyer. You want a cash offer? No, it's you're fixing problems, and you have to, they got to understand that you're a real person, that you're just not some robot on the other end,
You got to, man, especially like you said towards the beginning of the call, like, especially these days, if you're calling somebody from Mojo, it's a real Jedi Knight or a real persuasion or just perceptively understanding people to turn them picking up a phone call that says spam on it or potential spam on it.
Had it happen last week.
Yeah, that's someone that's going to, trust you with oftentimes their biggest asset in life. Beau, what he was just kind of describing there, what I was thinking in my head, on the Lamar Jackson note too, my roommate has a signed Lamar Jackson ball right in his room here.
Amazing.
MVP. But what Beau is kind of doing on these conversation, guys, if you're watching, it's like instead of like rams like butting heads, Beau with these methodical, intelligent questions is slowly turning to the same side as the seller so that they're both kind of on the same team together, punching the same or going towards the same objective instead of going against themselves. So he's really, what I was feeling there, that visual was in my head, is Beau is just slowly, he said, peeling back the layers of an onion, which is a popular analogy, but it's also kind of just becoming on their team to solve a problem together, which of course you have to know what the problem is first, which Beau is asking through these intelligent questions and his own level of, being a perceptive listener, which is a skill and experience that you guys obviously are building yourselves in your own ways.
And think about this too, is like, say that, Carlos has all of these problems. He got divorced and his wife took all the stuff and his 401k, and, he lost his job and now he's working at Subway and, he hates coming home every day and smelling like a sandwich and, all the things, he hates his dog and ripped up his carpet last week and he's back 3 payments in his house and just everything that life could throw at you, he's throwing at you. Maybe the problem seems so big to Carlos, you just don't know where to start. And most people feel that way who are very overwhelmed. They just don't know, where in the world do I start? No one, even this guy on the phone, would not like my property because it's so bad. They feel deeply embarrassed and they don't know what to do about it. And so you have to start in bite-sized pieces. How do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time, right? And this is what we're dealing with on a daily basis, is convincing people that we can deal with their problems. And that's pretty much it.
Love it, man. A lot of just great wisdom in there, guys. And I'm a big fan or big advocate of believing, just hearing someone high level, like I said, Beau, high level human, high level entrepreneur, just hearing their philosophy is good for you guys to soak up in your own internal operating system. To put a bow real quick on cold calling before we move into kind of what you're doing with your brand now and online presence and everything moving forward. I want to ask real quick just about some metrics that you track around cold calling, just to give the audience a little bit of idea on those, like how many calls. I know I went over them a little bit earlier, but what are some metrics that you guys track internally at Simply Sold for cold calling?
Yes. So let's see here.
And I know it might be a little bit blended between when you're calling versus outsourced. I know that's been, a thing that's changed over the last few years.
Let's see here. So we do lots of different marketing channels, and one of the things that I'm even getting super granular on I really want to be super granular on, I want to know how much each data, like every little detail, like every penny that's going out toward marketing in every way, we have an Excel spreadsheet to track it.
Love it.
We have gotten, how much is each skip trace costing us? Where are we getting our lists? Is it, how much is all of this costing us? How much is each phone call costing us? How much are hourly wages? I know this is a lot of information, but to really scale something, you have to know how much it costs you and how much, when you spend $1, how many dollars come back, right? It's marketing 101.
Mm-hmm.
And so we're doing that and figuring out, if we're doing cold call marketing or we're doing text marketing or doing anything like that, how much money are we spending to get a deal? It is really, that's the bottom line, is how much money are we spending to get a deal, and how many people do we have to talk to? How many leads do we need? So some key ones that we're really tracking hard is how many leads does it take to get a deal? Or how many leads does it take to get a motivated, what we consider, a motivated seller? And what does that look like? If we're in each marketing method, obviously will have its own KPIs. How does it take 30 leads, 20 leads, to get one deal? And how much are we making on that one deal? So how many conversations do we need to have to get the lead? That's another big thing that we're tracking, is how many conversations are we having? That way, if I need to have 168 conversations, then you just get through the 168 as quick as you can, right? To get to the lead. And if you know those numbers, and we used to track this in life insurance, one of our agents would come back to us and say, man, my last week, it stunk, man. I didn't, get any sales. We'd have to say, okay, well, let's go back through your last week. How many leads did you have? How many doors did you knock on? Yeah, basically we're saying, how many people did you talk to? And track that. Like, how many real conversations? If people literally track their daily conversations, like literally, I talked to 21 people today. Okay, good. Now, how many did you talk to Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday? How many conversations are you literally having? And then what's going on from there? Like, if you say, well, nothing's happening here, nothing's happening in the business. Well, how many people are you talking to? You look back, well, I only talked to 6 people last week. Well, no duh, Sherlock. Of course you're not having any success because you sucked. You haven't done the work. You haven't actually gotten there and done the real work. You talked to 6 people. I mean, what are you expecting to happen? So you got to really, that is one thing, people are not being real with themselves. We live in an Instagram culture and they're saying that I'm out here grinding, I'm hustling, I'm out here working every day, like just make a rap song about it. I'm like literally just throwing money and I'm just living a glamorous life, and 8 days a week, 25 hours a day, right? We don't sleep and we work, Sundays and everything, it doesn't matter. And people are acting like that. But really, if they really want to have success, I think they're going to have to track out, have to track like how many conversations they're having with real sellers. And once they get getting really real with yourself and tracking these numbers and saying, hey, I'm not talking to people. You got to have accountability, even with yourself. Like, okay, I didn't talk to people this week.
Huge.
Just being real. Like, I don't care if you're doing so much marketing, but if you are actually not on the phone talking to sellers, this is like literally Bible truth. You're not getting a deal. I mean, it's not happening. And I just don't think people, they have too much busy work, right? They have too much busybody work. That is, I'm building my systems out. I'm doing this. I'm trying to get GlobyFlow, and I'm trying to get this and Zapier and all this kind of stuff. And I'm building, I'm growing, I'm doing. Well, they're not actually doing revenue producing activities. And write that down. Like, if you are not doing a revenue producing activity every single day for multiple hours at a time, you're going to fail. And I had to have this talk with my acquisitions people. How many people have you talked to? Well, I made a bunch of phone calls. Well, I don't care. I want to know how many people you talk to. That way, because you're coaching them up, right? You're coaching people up. You're getting better. That way you can say, I did this and these are the results. You put in $1, you're going to get 2 out. Like, you need to be able to reproduce your results every single time. So we know if we're doing text marketing, every 37 leads pops out a deal.
Nice.
Every on cold call, if we talk to 161 people of just conversations. Hey, Carlos, you want to sell your house? Well, no, maybe I do. I don't know. We have a conversation for 7 minutes. And so 161 conversations, and somebody's going to say yes. Like, you actually have to track the actual conversations, not just the leads. Like, who are you talking to? And then lessen the gap, like, to do lots of deals, how can you do more within less time? That's the next thought process is, compressing the time and shrinking the time down is how to compress that. But it really comes down to really accountability with yourself. Put down the phones and get off social media and Instagram and just really talk to more people, and you will get more deals. I know it sounds like rocket science, but hey, I'm just the messenger.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. I mean, that's the philosophy of a lot of successful high-level people and entrepreneurs, Brent Daniels, Grant Cardone. It's going to come down to a number game of quality conversations that you have. It's an interesting paradox, although, of one side where we're very emotionally attached to the sellers, tapping into, perceiving their thought process as their problem. The other end of the paradox is data over drama. Like, 100%. I need to know it's going to take 161 calls to be able to get a deal. When you know that, you're not able to help yourself stay accountable, help your team that you outsource stay accountable, but you're also able to reverse engineer those goals that you have on a monthly, quarterly, annual basis of, if it takes 161 calls to get a deal and I want to get 10 deals, I'm going to have to make, south of 1,700 calls, if I want to do that.
100%, like the data, not drama thing, that's real. And what people really they need to really hone in on the word data, because what people do is they'll get in there and they'll have conversations, and they'll have people who are just crazy sellers, and then that affects them emotionally. Okay. Do they want to sell their house? Yes or no? Right. You want to get as quickly to a yes or a no as fast as you can. So are they want to sell their house? No, they don't. Well, then why are you crying about what they just said to you? Go to the next person. Like, literally follow the data. That data trail is going to lead you to deals. Like, there is no question about it. It has to be data, not drama. And you can't worry about what these cycle people deal with, and you can't let them in their life affect you in your life. Someone's drowning, you don't jump in, right? You throw them a life raft. You don't jump in the water with them. So if somebody's drowning and these people are drowning, you don't jump in there emotionally with them. You help them, you keep them at arm's length, and and a lot of times these phone conversations, you got to do the same thing. Next. That's a good mindset. Next, get off the phone with them. Next.
100%.
Got to do that. And if you don't do that, that's going to be a problem. I'm seeing I see a big trend in the industry. Guys, they'll get in here, they'll do a deal, 2 deals, 5 deals, 10 deals. What I would say first 25 deals. They're not really experienced. What they do is they're taking their eye off the prize, and they're saying, well, now I'm going to start influencing. They're taking their time off. They don't really they try to build these really quick teams, and that they got their phones out, and they're just, hey guys, we're doing stuff. And pretty soon they've taken their eye off the prize of really talking to sellers. And they try to build a team of something that they haven't really done at a high level, and they can't teach it, right? Because they've done a deal here or there. Most people could fail they could be accidentally get 10 deals, right? If they really they tried that, they talked to enough people.
When the market's up.
Yeah, of course, and people, I think that most people, they're taking their eye off the prize, and they're trying to do something that they actually can't teach.
It is. We were talking on the phone. We were talking on the phone like last week or 2 weeks ago, kind of around this principle. But yeah, it's interesting to see the social media age of almost like having intentions of living your life off of like what you're going to post on social or how you're going to portray yourself on social.
Yep.
And it was pretty enlightening to me. I think I told you the other week that just for kind of like a break from social media, not knocking it by any means, and it's a great, amazing tool. But just having an Instagram off my phone for a couple months was pretty like enlightening. Like, not like having to post stories or like look at other people's stuff was pretty cool.
Yeah. It can be quite it's very interesting. Yeah, it really is, and I'll just leave it at that.
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting, not knocking it, but me and Beau have our opinions on it,
Yeah.
and how certain folks choose to use it, which transitions nicely. Let's talk a little bit now about kind of like your online brand presence. Love what you guys do. If you guys are watching the video, you can see I'm rocking the Simply Sold shirt here, but I kind of want to talk about this because I know you're a big carrot guy. I know you got the YouTube. I know that you get the podcast. He's here in his office podcast booth here, but I kind of want to talk about your opinion right now with online and moving forward, what you're looking to do.
Yeah, man. And I think we've talked about this in the last couple of years, right? I mean, we've talked about online branding and, it kind of goes with our last conversation a little bit. So many people just want to be here, do deals, and their whole mindset is just hustle, grind, right? These young guys that get out there and they want to hustle, grind, and pretty soon because they haven't lived it and they don't have a family to take care of, right? I have people to take care of. I have a house to take care of. I got family, kids, all the stuff. I need to be in business, forever. These kids can go out here and they don't really care. They're still living with their parents maybe, or, $700 apartment. There's not a lot going on there. And I think they have that, just want to get in there and do a deal and, make it look fun and, hold up a little check. And I think I'm here for the long term. And I think people, and when you're thinking of branding, I think that you have to think you have to think past the deal. You have to think past just one deal. And a lot of times in branding, when you're doing that, you really have to transcend just 1 year, 2 years, 5 years. You really have to think, what am I going to be doing in 10 years? What does my life look like in 2 years? If the work I'm doing right now on Simply Sold and you're wearing the shirt, like if that work every day, what if it doesn't pay off for 2 years? Everything I do every day, everything I bought and like the studio that I'm in right now, what if it all doesn't pay off for 2 years? Is it still going to be worth it in 2 years? What if I can create a business, a real business where I have consistent lead flow into my business without my input, or perceivably as my input anymore, because I've put in the work. And I think people have to think about their brand and what they're trying to do. Like Simply Sold came out of a thought that, I had another business called Louisville Fair Offer, right? It was, I still have the .com and it's not up right now, but, and I'm thinking, okay, I want to go to other markets someday. Or what if I wanted to do a lead gen business? I can't be Louisville Fair Offer in, Nashville, or Cincinnati, Baltimore. So first thing was, I'm not going to be geographically locked in. Simply Sold fixed that for me. It checked off that box. And so I started putting in the work. I paid money for lots of work on my website. I actually had to hire out people to make the changes that I wanted, and it cost money. And I was thinking, I had this talk with Trevor at Carrot, and we were thinking, hey, in 2 years, if I get no leads in the next 2 years from my website and my brand, am I okay with that? Because it doesn't fit the mold, right? It doesn't fit I'm over here grinding, it's paying off. You know what I'm saying? It doesn't fit that mold. So if it doesn't look like that, am I okay with being in obscurity? And we all know, right? Yes, it's okay, because I'm still at home living my life. It fits my lifestyle, because I'm not doing this business for anyone else. I don't care what anybody thinks. Like, I'm doing this. I have two sons, Jack and Gabe, and I have my wife, Shara. So I have those three people that I care about. What anybody else perceives about my business, I just don't care, because they're not the one paying my bills. I am. Mm-hmm. Until people start paying my bills, I'll start caring what they think. So I'm going to build this business for me and my family. So the thought was that, if I can put in the time now, in 2 years, it's going to look like, wow, where'd this guy come from? Overnight success, right? In 2 years, all the late nights and the stuff that we're doing, hiring a team. I have a full-time SEO guy right now, like full-time. All he does is work on my website. And seems like it is like literally getting a train running. And that's how branding really is. It's like getting a train moving slowly but surely. It's going to come up to speed. And when it does, I'm going to have a beast. It's going to be something worth something at some point, because their end game truly would be lead gen, can we dominate certain markets or certain areas, geographic regions, because we have built a brand and a presence. And it comes down to the thing of like the local celebrity, eventually, of, hey, this is the guy to go to, the go-to person. Can you sit at home truly in your underwear, playing Madden in my basement, and still can it be reproduced every single month? That's the thing. Like on autopilot, right? Can leads come in every single month because of the work we did in the past? And that's the way I think is like branding is it's going to long-term play, and it may not pay off today. So that's the big thing on that. And on the branding side is just, that's what I'm going for, is just Simply Sold is something that I think can grow pretty quickly. I'm excited about that. And then I branded out to the house buying guys on the other side of the thing. And that took me 3 years to come up with that, because I didn't know what I was going to be doing on that side of things. I knew I had something that I wanted to do. And until I have guys I eat breakfast with every week, some older guys, landlords. And I said something to somebody one day and said, they're like, who are you eating breakfast with? And I said, oh, just some of my house buying guy buddies. And I was like, oh, that's it. That's it. My favorite conversations were with my friends, the guys who buy houses. And it's just the funniest conversations, the stuff that is just, that we just talk about life and, freedom, flexibility, time, and doing deals and laughing. And that turned into the house buying guy stuff where we're, talking about life and who we are. And it's something else that I'm not geographically locked into it. I want to have a mission with it. And I want to think a lot bigger than just the deal, today's deal. And, 'cause we're farmers. We really are. We're planting seeds, and it may not happen today. It may not happen, next week, next month, even next year. But I guess when you're building a brand, you have to figure out and ask yourself, is it going to be worth it? Am I going to be passionate about it long enough to see the fruit? Because I think that you can be motivated long enough to get some really cool results, but it's really going to take discipline to not go out of business. Because motivation is going to fade. When you have your bills grow and you get bigger and you keep going and you get bad days, and I don't know if motivation is good enough. Really, I mean, some days, you don't feel like doing it, right? You don't feel like going to work. You don't feel like waking up and going into nasty houses or dealing with that and dealing with these psycho people, so that we deal with some days. And so a lot of times it takes discipline. So thinking long-term, building something that doesn't require my input, I think is the key thing. That eventually is the work that I've built, the foundations that I built. Can we continue to tweak and make small changes and scale up without my daily at the helm doing this business? Can we provide some consistency and over my life? And that's my goal, is lifestyle. That's where it all comes down to, building a brand that is working for me.
Love it. So Beau is kind of putting every idea and thought through a filter of, is this long-term going to work for me? Well, I'll have the consistent discipline to stay with it. And am I okay not having the instant gratification from it and the results of some type of successes from it? Am I willing to wait a year or two before I get leads or any type of monetization plays from that? So that's definitely a good framework for anybody listening to this, because everybody is online in some form or fashion these days. And that's definitely something that is trending up, of course, the importance of that. Just to touch on Beau, what all are you doing? I know we have the Simply Sold brand, the shirt I'm wearing. House Buying Guys is actually pretty cool. It's like a caricature of Beau and some other anime type stuff going on there, or animated type stuff going on there. Podcast, if you guys are watching, he's in his office, which is also like a soundproof, high quality podcasting booth there, where he has people come in live. He interviews people online via Zoom like I typically do. Am I missing anything there on the brand? I know, and obviously sites for, just capturing seller buyers. Am I missing anything there kind of under the Beau umbrella as far as like online presence?
So I have my simplysold.com. I have the housebuyingguys.com. I also have my Louisville Wholesale Houses .com that's my buyer site, and we build our wholesale business through there, and we run our deals, are through there. And so we do that, and that's become a quite fun, and I think the house buying guy stuff is going to be a lot of fun because, really, I have these shirts that say house buying guy on them, and I'm going to challenge everybody, at some point to wear these shirts and see if you can get a deal wearing a shirt. And then all proceeds, not a penny, is going to go to me. We're going to give it to charity, and we're going to do some really fun stuff with it.
That's awesome.
We're going to do some really neat things that I think people need to build businesses that are bigger than themselves. In an ever-increasing Instagram culture that is a me, and I need to let everybody know what I'm doing, that I'm successful and I'm something. I think we need to do something that is pointing to other people and other things and helping others and actually doing something more than just saying, hey, I'm a go-giver, but actually being impact, actually doing something in our local communities, in our local families, in our lives, and doing something just bigger than who we are. It's not just consumerism.
Absolutely love that, man, and couldn't agree more. That's something I'm striving for myself. So absolutely love to hear that. Know that's extremely, that rings true extremely for Beau and kind of just how his operating system is. I want to touch on a few more points here before we close this up. Since I'm grateful for the opportunity to be chatting with you, as I mentioned at the beginning of the call, I want to hear kind of your best advice and maybe some of the biggest obstacles or challenges that you've overcome building a family. And I'm asking for myself because I know it'll help me out. And it's, like I said, very high quality person in Beau, but just anybody else. I feel like maybe a character investor maybe has some young kids, married, stuff like that. And I know that you're just an amazing dad, husband, things like that. So I kind of just want to hear your philosophy on that, growing a family, before we jump into the last two things.
Oh, that's a good question, man. My perspective changed a lot. My youngest son had open heart surgery when he was 6 days old, back in 2015. And that, it hurt me mentally. It hurt my heart. And it was a very difficult time for me. And still, I can barely talk about this without crying. It was very hard for me. And it's still hard for me to think about, seeing a little tiny kid, get their chest cut open and have to go through that, and mentally and emotionally. The reason the way I am, I don't care what other people think. They can take it all from me. I just don't care. I don't, and I say that and I mean it. Because the only thing that matters at the end of my life is that I'm a good dad, I'm a good husband, I'm a good father, I'm a good son. The things that really matter at the end of the day, that I can have someone who says, hey, I would call you in the middle of the night if I needed something. I want people to know that I care about them. And so I want to raise children who are like that. I want to raise children who are, we get down to our core values, right? I want to raise children who are good men. When they grow up, they're going to be good husbands. And I'm thinking, 20 years down the road, 30 years down the road, like my children are going to take up my values. Are they going to go, if their neighbor is sick and they can't cut their grass, are they going to go cut their grass for them? Or are they going to do something nice when they're not asked? Are they going to be gentlemen? Are they going to love other people and love them with all their heart? Are they going to be passionate people? Are they going to be passionate about their work? Are they going to do more than they're paid for? So when I'm raising my boys, I think about this stuff. And the reason I feel choked up thinking about this, I want to raise kids who are really, they're passionate individuals. I think we need more passionate individuals who are, they're good kids, but if you came to my house at dinner time tonight, I can guarantee you one thing. It's not going to look like what I just told you. They're going to be naughty and they probably will pull their pants down at dinner. They're wild. They punch each other in the face. They're wrestling. They're screaming and crying. They're wild. They're naughty. Right. And so I'll just say, sit down, pull your pants up. What are you doing over there? Stop hanging off the balcony, real life boys. But on the dad side of things, I want to raise good guys. And that sometimes, love looks like something. And I think a lot of times we just have to understand that when you're raising kids, I'm not a pro, but I want to love my children very well. Yeah, I fail a lot. A lot of times work can get in the way and stuff that we're doing, right? Our own goals and ambitions can get in the way of being a good parent sometimes. And, sometimes you have to work harder than others. You got to dig yourself out of a hole. You're in a funk and you got to come back. And we've all been there, right? Everybody's done that. So I think just having some long-term goals and It's kind of branding, right? It's the idea of, it's not going to be instant gratification. Just because you tell your kids to, stop hitting their brother at dinner doesn't mean they're going to be like little princes the next day. It's going to take time. So that is really important to me. Like a long-term goal of, I want my kids to have impact. And that's the reason I do these podcasts and different things. I want them to look back over my life and say, hey, when I was 7 and 5, I didn't know why dad was in the basement, or I didn't know why dad was going to these stinky houses. I want to, really them to look back over my life and say, hey, my dad cared for me. It's a legacy piece, right? So I think everybody should think about that legacy piece, legacy of a family. And, on marriage, I've known my wife since we were about 7 years old, and I'm 35 now. So we've known each other for a really long time. We started dating when I was 17, she was 18. And we dated for 6 years, really, before we got married. This year we'll be married 13 years. And, you're going to have your good days and you're going to have your bad days, obviously. Everybody does. And we've made a pretty big commitment to, we don't fight in front of our kids. We don't really fight, but we don't really try not to have disagreement really in front of our kids too much. And we go on dates a lot. I try to make sure that we go on dates as much as we can, ask for help when we need help. And we're friends. We like hanging out with each other. I don't wish, I wasn't with my wife tonight. I wish I was with my buddies. I don't feel that way. We're building something together. We're doing fun stuff. Now, she's not actively involved in my business at any level, doesn't have a clue about anything I do in my business. But she allows me, by being a great wife and a great mother, that I can do my business. She truly supports me. I would never be able to be successful without my wife because, she takes care of the kids and she does a lot of stuff at home that if I had to worry about that coming home, it'd be hard, but like, I think if somebody's listening and they're not being a good husband, or they feel like they're not being a good husband, really evaluate what you want and just make the change right away. Just make the change quickly. And you can change it. Just go out there, try to be a better dad, put your phone away at dinner time, have some rules and family values and say, hey, I'm not living up to my potential. And I think that's the thing is, we all have potential inside of us, and living up to that potential. I think that's one of the biggest heartbreaking things in life. And when you're not living up to your potential, that there's more inside, right? And that has to be pulled out somehow. And everybody should try to live up to their potential and figure out what that is in your life. And, being a good husband and a good dad is part of my purpose. I want to be good at those things. And being good just means you're going to try every single day, and you're going to admit when you're wrong, and you're going to just go after it. And, tell your wife, hey, I'm going to go on dates. And, I got a super hot wife, and I tell her all the time, like, hey, you're like super hot.
Hell yeah.
And I want to take you on a date tonight, and people always are like, man, how is it working out? I'm like, it's awesome. I get to hang out with my super hot wife all the time. Like it's super great. And, it's really just, I think people just don't put enough effort into some of these little things. They'll put so much effort into their businesses and into their customers. They should treat their wife like a customer. You go out of your way to do all this stuff for other people, and you neglect it at home. It's a real shame that, and I fall in this category too sometimes. So I'm preaching the choir, we go out of our way to really call it dinner time. Wait, I got to get this deal. I'm right here. They're calling. This is really important. And you'll neglect the small things at home, which you perceive to be small, but it's the biggest things in the world. Mm-hmm. So try to have a 30,000-foot view of your family and put them first. And no matter what happens in life, you always will have your family to fall back on when you fail. And I say when you fail because we all do, right? We all make mistakes, and you're going to need them. And so that's my philosophy, is very family oriented. And that's the reason why I am the way I am, is because, I've been through some tough times, but family and friends are really important in life. When you have a bad day, it's nice to come home to people who love you.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, man. Well said, I must say. And towards the beginning of the interview, guys, Beau is saying, as far as when you're talking with sellers, trying to get them to know you, establishing likability and credibility, it's the little things in the conversations you pick up on. Beau also alluded to that with just the relationship with his wife and his kids too. It's the little things. And something I'm a big advocate of is talking about how really interconnected business and life are. Like your goals, how you operate. I think there's like a I know the Richard Branson quote, like he doesn't see work and play as two separate things. It's all just living. But I really do see those things as interconnected, and oftentimes like your personal life will affect your business life, and like you can use that to your advantage, vice versa. Like if one is doing well, try to match it up. So Beau does an amazing job at that. Always over communicate, always be present with your family. Beau's definitely somebody I look up to. Again, in the social media age, I didn't mean to knock it earlier, but it is something like I know Beau. Yeah, it's something like it's like something that I know Beau. Like we talk pretty regularly.
I'm a hater.
Yeah, I'll say a little bit, just how some people use it. But you kind of just know people through social media too, just through like the hundreds of posts that you've seen. So I know Beau is like an amazing dad and is always on there. Most of the times we talk, he does have his boys down there. So I appreciate you opening up a little bit, not just for me who's going to benefit from that, but anybody else who's either going to build a family in the future or they may have a family already can benefit from that. And that's part of the reason why you work so hard. You as the listener should work so hard on this stuff so that you can this is the most important stuff. Your family, your friends, how you really want to choose to spend your time is the most important stuff. That's the whole reason why you're listening to this interview in the first place. Improve your business enough to a point where you're able to impact this stuff.
And bring your family into your business. And I don't mean like, hey, you're going to do this job, you're going to cold call, you're going to do this, and you're going to run my books, and my wife's going to keep me on task. I mean like, hey, well, I'm going to be really successful this year, and I'm going to do extra deals so I can take my wife. She loves Alice Beach in Florida, and I'm going to have to pony up, and I'm going to have to spend a lot of money to go stay down at this amazing beach in Florida on 30A. And it costs a whole lot of money to go there. And you know what? I said, hey, let's go there. What do you want? What do you want? Because now that's going to give me a goal. Like, hey, I need to do an extra deal just to take my wife on a $20,000 vacation. And some people are like, oh my God, you're wasting your money, 20 grand. I'm like, no, man, I'm investing in my family. Your mindset's off.
Mm-hmm.
No, I got an awesome wife, and I want to make sure that she's my princess, right? She's my queen. My young sons are my princes, and I want to take them and treat them like that. So I'm going to do an extra deal. I'm going to work a little harder and invest in my family. And so one of our family goals, and I'll share this, like we want to take at least 4 trips a year to awesome places where we're just together doing fun stuff. And part of that too is I'm going to take my extended family, the people who are around me, like my mom and my dad and my in-laws on pay for all their trip, and maybe we go stay at a beach house for a month, like doing really cool stuff for other people when I know that they can't pay me back. And that's just something that is a goal for and that's where my family can be involved in my business where, hey, this is stuff that I need to be successful for other people. It's deeper. So I think that's something that everybody should think about is just really thinking about the other people and their family and love them in that way.
100%. That's something it's kind of something that, being in an entrepreneurial space in the circles that we run in, have your why. The biggest why can overcome any how, but it's something I'm definitely being more intentional. I even have a list down here I worked on this weekend specifically of like even trying to link specific tasks in work and keep going down the line and thinking about the ripple effect that it may have on a person. So even doing this interview, for example, the interview itself is hour and a half, going to decompress it. It's going to take me some time to edit it, put it up before I have all this outsourced, come up with a title, put it on all the different platforms. And, the part of the interview, this is like my favorite thing to do is talk to high level people. But the couple hours or so it could take me away from revenue generating activities, whether it's selling InvestorFuse, talking to people in our academy, whatever it may be. But I think of the ripple effect that Beau's insight could have on, the thousands of downloads that we get per month to people listening to that, how that could affect their family, how their family affects their communities. And when you kind of like write that out, it kind of, for lack of a better term, like automates how much action that you take and how fast you take the action when you think about the ripple effects your daily lives could take. So kind of just speaking off the top of the head here from some reflecting stuff I did this weekend from the Happiness Advantage, it's a really powerful tool, especially if you're thinking directly of your family.
Oh man, I try to do everything I can. Now we all have selfish ambitions, right? I want to be a high level entrepreneur. I want to do what I can do to make the most money possible and be the best at what I do. I think that's for me. It's like my own selfish ambitions. I want to be the best, but you got to bring in humility there at some level and say, hey, I'm doing it I want to have some family time and affect the world and live up to my purpose and all those kind of things, So I think each person really needs to sit and reflect and have some solid thinking time of why, and it needs to exclude others. Others meaning the outside world of your outside of your family. Exclude what other people think. If the world didn't know that you were successful, how would that impact your business? If no one had a clue that you did a ton of deals and you couldn't post it on Instagram or Facebook or whatever else is out there, how would you, if you're only your kids and your wife knew, how would you move forward? How would you handle your daily life? My kids in 15 years, what I do today would affect them. Like, think that way. Like, change the way you think. Like, hey, babe, I did this awesome deal. Hey, buddy, I did this, Think only you're there. You have an audience, a little audience, and you're a built-in audience, and that we should be so proud to go and say, hey, I'm your hero, right? That's what the world wants. That's what your kids want. They want a dad who's awesome, or a wife or a mompreneur, whoever you are. Be the hero. Who cares what anybody else thinks? That's my philosophy.
How much, and I know this is actually our last conversation on the phone when I was having my talking point. How much have high-level masterminds affected this mindset that you've built? A pretty bulletproof, 35 years old, you got a pretty bulletproof, long-term legacy thinking mindset, very successful, quote unquote, on paper. How much have these high-level masterminds helped you with your mindset?
Yeah, I have a friend of mine, that I have a couple friends. I kind of went through like a tough journey in my mind, in 2018. It was a hard year for me, successful year financially, but, relationally, I could see that things could slip. I could see, hey, I'm not the same person I need to be. I'm not living up to my potential. And, dad, husband, all the stuff, friend, that was a big thing too. Like, am I being a sucky friend? I want to be a good friend. And so I went out and hired two people. I hired a relationship, a business coach, like as far as like a life coach kind of a guy, high level. He was it was an accident how it happened, but he ended up being a life coach to the stars. Oprah Winfrey, Kobe Bryant, Michael Jordan, like these kind of people, right? Like, it was just I'd say a God thing, and I met this guy and came into my life and my wife's life. And then I hired a guy, no BS business coach, guy who's just like thinking 100-year increments, really, I'm dead. My kids are dead. What's happening? Who have I impacted globally? And I think, most people want tactical nuts and bolts type stuff, right? How do I do 4 deals instead of 2 deals? They're thinking small. They're thinking about your checkbook, not just, okay, how do I change my grandchildren's life, or how do I change my parents' life? Like forever, like legacy pieces, legacy thinking. And most people they just want to, it's such a sad culture that we live in there. I will say this, there's some amazing people, but a lot of times the people that are really getting into this business now, it's just a lot of it's based on the hustle grind culture. And a lot of these big time masterminds, they are, they work hard. These guys who you pay in 35, 50 grand a year to be in these things in a small mindset, small group, big mindset, thinking legacy pieces. And they're really breaking down, like having this conversation of, hey, why are you doing this? They're shedding tears. They're talking about real big thinking and real big pieces, like saying, hey, I am meant for more in life than just another deal. So why am I here? And figuring that out, that piece, why am I on this earth? This is the existential human question, right? Like, why in the world are we on this planet? And a lot of these high-level masterminds, at least the ones I try to be a part of, I have a business masterminds that I am a part of, and then I have a family thing that I invest in my own family. And I want to invest 100 grand every year into my own family. Like, personal development. People say, oh, I'm just reading books, they post themselves taking pictures and selfies of them reading books. It's just more feeding the stuff. Like I'm growing mentally, right? No, turn all of that off. What are you really doing, right? I mean, and so invest in themselves. Like, so I invest in myself on the business side where I get guys to say, no, you're being lazy. Stop doing that. Don't do this. You're lying to yourself. Like getting the truth in business on that side, building the legacy piece, building the purpose piece, and building like, why are we doing this? Is it just for more money? Okay, then I don't know if I want to do this anymore. Stinky houses, roaches, and bugs. Like, is this what we're doing? Or is it a piece to the legacy of impact and influence and for the greater good? So that's what really opening your mindset to who am I and what am I capable of doing, and the impact, what impact am I capable of making, and how great could that impact be to really, this is truly to better other people's lives. Like, people use the go-giver terminology all the time, but really it's a pat on the back. At the end of the day, it's a pat on the back to other people. They don't really, I wanted the impact. That's what I want. I want impact, not just, hey, buddy, good job. Good job, Carlos. You're really making an impact. Go give everybody. No, I want real legacy impact from my life and your life. Like, really, I want people, when you dead, I want people to say, man, that guy was he changed my life forever. That's what I want. So big time, high level masterminds, people say, I'd never pay for coaches. Well, it's probably not for you anyways. It's for people who really want to make a difference in the world and do more than just make an extra dollar. Mm-hmm. And that's my 2 cents on that. Maybe I'm raw and unfiltered, but I try to tell the truth, man. I really
life is too short to, and I was thinking about this last night too. Just a good nugget. It's like, if someone is willing to spend their most valuable asset, their time, to listen to this particular podcast episode, I want to be just as transparent and raw and real and have those type of conversations. Like, I'm a big advocate of a couple points, which I always say. One is, I don't get why people wait until someone's dying to have like high level philosophy conversations like this. Like, I have those conversations daily. Two, whether you're negotiating with sellers and buyers in your business, friends, family, clients, whatever, I want that interaction to be the most memorable interaction that they had that day. So those are two kind of like filters or foundations that my mind goes through when I interact with people. So like Beau, I want him to be hanging, with his hot wife and wild boys at the dinner table, and I'd be like,
100.
Damn, me and Carlos had an awesome, like, I had like a 15-minute rant on business and high level thinking that I haven't got to say on another podcast before. That's going to be able to be heard by like thousands of people when this publishes in a week or two, and it's going to affect people, and people are going to be hitting me up from that. Like, I'm not necessarily thinking that specifically, but I know that I was able to extract that from Beau, and that's what he'll be thinking about at dinner tonight.
Yeah, like I think it's the concept too of like, you have these conversations, and then the way I think, at least, is I for a long time I just wanted to be around other people who are in the business. They're doing the business, and no matter who they were personally, I wanted to be around them because they're successful in the business sphere, right? They're good at wholesaling. They're good, and I neglected to evaluate whether I would allow them to be in my life or not, based on like, would I want this person as my friend? And I just accept it all, even if they're a dirtbag, just because they're successful. Well, now I stopped all that and said, no, I'm going to associate with everybody because it doesn't go with my values. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm not going to associate with everybody because it doesn't go with my core values. So I'm going to figure out, who do I want to be? Who do I want to be around? So I'm going to start speaking the way I feel, because that'll draw in people who want to be. They want to be great dads. They want to be great husbands and great sons and business leaders and entrepreneurs. And they're faith filled, or they're whatever. I want to be around people who are very like-minded. That way you could be a tribe and move forward and grow something worth, if I'm going to spend my time doing something, you know what, I'm going to do it the way I want to do it. And I want to get people who want to go on the same journey, guys. And there, I found out there are a ton of people who want to be. I thought I was alone, but you know what? I was totally wrong. There's a ton of guys who want to be the best of best dads, the best husbands. Guys who I'm hanging around, they're crying because they're like, I treat my wife right. The other day I said something I shouldn't have said. They want to be the best, and that's what I want to be around. I want to be around guys who really care about their life, not just, hey, another go drink a beer and, let's go party.
Yeah.
That's not who I am.
Yeah. Yeah. Similarly, my criteria is kind of getting more specific as well versus just like, quote unquote successful on paper. And now kind of more so with my core values, principles.
Yep.
Like
non-negotiables.
Non-negotiables. Like I said, like, who doesn't want to have fun, be able to cook for people? Me and you are big
100%.
on cook and hosting for people. I want a hot wife as well. Awesome kids. So
yes.
Beau has a lot of things, about 6 or 7 years ahead of me.
Takes time
that I appreciate. Yeah, man. But I mean, just age wise, but
true. Yeah.
Yeah, man. Awesome stuff here. And we dove into some stuff. I got a random compliment yesterday from someone that appreciates, because there's tons of real estate podcasts out there, but he appreciated just kind of like how deep and real the interviews are. And this was no exception with Beau here. And like I said, high quality human, high quality entrepreneur. And I think those things are very much interconnected.
I really appreciate it, man. I want you to come down for some.
My pleasure. Dude, I would love that. I need to do a Kentucky Derby trip, just kind of
seriously
do that all in one.
You really got to, man. Come down. I'll cook you whatever you want.
Love that.
A whole smorgasbord of any kind of brisket or ribs or whatever you want. We'll just do a whole day of cooking.
Absolutely love that, man. So I was going to say my last thing, I had the 3 nuggets for you to end off here. I want to hear your best advice from a certified BBQ judge. What is the best advice you have for cooking?
Oh, that's good. Very good. And I have a good answer too. So, there's 2 different types of barbecue, right? You have your backyard barbecue, and then there's competition barbecue, which, being a barbecue judge, that is very much based on, barbecue is subjective, right? Because you have lots of different styles of barbecue. You have your Texas barbecue, you have Memphis style barbecue, you have Carolina style barbecue. So everybody likes their own style. But I will say some things that are very, that are consistent across the board. And this is how people judge barbecue. People judge this stuff. How does it look? Does it look good? And we actually have to judge that, right? As a barbecue judge, does it look, appetizing? Do you want to eat? Does it make you look like, oh my God, I want to eat that all, like the whole rack of ribs? And then, when you bite into a rib, and we use ribs as the analogy, does it actually have the right texture? When you bite through it, it shouldn't just disintegrate and fall out. People say, oh, it just fell apart. That's not into high quality barbecue standards. It shouldn't. When you bite a rib, it should actually leave like a C. You bite right through it. It's a clean bite. And then it should have a nice smoky flavor. You should be able to taste the smoke, but not overpower the meat. So, and then all barbecue should be cooked over some kind of an open fire. It should have a fire involved. At some level. And so taste, texture, and tenderness are really, really important when you are cooking fine quality meats. Very, very important. So
love it, man.
And it takes a lot of practice. And here's a good advice. Here's a really good advice. When you're cooking a lot, get a journal. I recently did this, and this would be so fun. Like, get a journal and write down everything you did in the cook. Every single thing you did in the cook. I used this cut of meat. It weighed this much. I used this much seasonings. I put it was on the smoke for 3 hours, and then I wrapped it for 2 hours. Like, detail it all out so that way you can look back and you can have a journal. It's a legacy, right? It's everything you should do. You should look back and say, man, I enjoyed my life. Like literally stuff simple like that. Little simple things like that. And my wife got that for me, and that was just one of the greatest gifts. It was super fun. I journal all my cooks now. And she was like, what are you doing over there? Writing a book? She makes fun of me. And, it's like, no, this is really good. And I want to be able to duplicate it.
I love that, man. A very stoic philosophy, which if you guys know me, I could talk about that stuff all the time. And I'm huge on being able to, kind of journal and document so that you can have a regular reflection and then make your best decisions and potential pivots from there. So same fun. Thing again, integrated with your personal life. It's something that you can do with your personal life, kind of, study and your business too. Write down things that you're doing in business to make processes, make pivots, adjustments, find out what works for you. But dude, this has been an awesome interview. I definitely want to say much appreciation, love your way, just how you choose to live your life, providing for your family first and foremost, but then also, being a true go-giver, for lack of a better term, that's turning your mind here, being able to help other people out, out, hopping on podcasts to help share strategy, insight, philosophy. I think that's what life is all about, kind of learning and experiencing yourself to a certain extent, and then being able to help people. Once you do have that, you're actually implementing it and have documented success with it. So I appreciate that. What's the best, what's your Instagram handle and best place to follow you actually?
You can follow me. I have a couple of Instagrams. One is at the House Buying Guys. And then the other one is at Beau Hollis. So you can find me either one, at Beau Hollis and at the House Buying Guys. Building the House Buying Guys stuff, and I've been taking a lot of my real estate stuff, my real estate talks, over straight to the House Buying Guys, because I have a lot of friends who are not into what I do, and I don't want to be like one of those guys who's like vomiting real estate stuff all the time on my friends who have no idea what I do in real life. And I also like to talk to my other page, Be Barbecue too. So that's really, really fun. Posting my cooking things, and that's something I just think is fun.
Yeah, love that.
Here's
a brisket.
Oh, dude, that was so good.
Just to pull up. God, that looks good.
It was so good. And that's a real picture, unedited, of no filter on that picture. That was like the real bark on that. And then what I did is I ended up making burnt ends out of that. And that ended up being so good. Excellent. And so that was just a very fun cook.
I love that. Yeah. Once I have a house in the county, I'm going to be able to add a smoker.
Yes, man.
to my repertoire.
I'm going to be doing the outdoor kitchen here in the next month or two. So I'm going to complete that. And the outdoor patio has been tripled in size, and it's going to be a lot of fun to hang out there. And that's the goal. Do a barbecue real estate event in my house. Invite only, talk barbecue real estate, and have the best minds in the country come out and eat some of the best, finest meats that Kentucky has to offer.
Love it, man. Well, guys, hope you enjoyed the episode. If you got any value from it whatsoever, please feel free to share this with your friends, your network. Leave a 5-star review on iTunes. If it wasn't 5-star quality, please let me know and be happy to take any feedback from you guys. Follow Beau. He's got some awesome stuff out there. And again, I know we didn't get super strategic tactical here. We did touch on a bunch of stuff, but he's got a ton of interviews, or a handful of pretty popular interviews out there as well. If you want to search for him
Yep.
More so on that side, if you were jamming with him today.
Yeah, you can also follow me on YouTube /Beau Hollis.
Okay, yeah, YouTube as well.
And we're going to be posting multiple interviews on there weekly. And the podcast, the House Buying Guys podcast, launches very, very soon. So by the time this comes out, we'll be out and having a grand time.
Love it, man. Multiplying your message, multiplying your voice. I love it.
Yeah, man.
All right, guys. Well, have some fun. Practice your perceptive listening. Don't take life too seriously, but at the same time, think about your long-term legacy in your life, most importantly, and your business. Have an amazing day.